next speaker, we have Vipin Gupta, former Chief Information Strategy and Digital Officer, Toyota Financial Services International Corporation, and current President and CTO of Flipt. Also, I do want to say he's one of our 2021 MIT Sloan CIO Leadership Awardees. So please give a huge round of applause for our next speaker, Vipin Gupta. Green next, red back.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Samita. This is going to sound different than what George presented, and obviously we didn't plan this. But just to give you a little bit of a background, 35 years of IT leadership, first 15 years as a consultant, a partner in E&Y, then last 20 years in different CIO roles for big banks. So all I've done is little t and big T for large banks. And we can talk about that. But I think what I'm going to present today is slightly, it may sound different, but I think we'll somehow connect the dots with what George just presented. So I want to start with this, maybe a provocative statement, but many of you may not find this provocative. I think the most legacy enterprises are going to struggle to become AI enterprises, just like they struggle with digital. Oh, thank you, Mary. And it won't be just because they don't have technology or talent. Obviously, that's an issue, right? There are all kinds of gaps, and we can talk about things that need to be done on technology front and talent front. I think it is because fundamentally these organizations are going to see AI as just a tool to incrementally improve what already exists. So this is really a once-in-a-lifetime type of an opportunity, which happens maybe another generational opportunity, definitely every 20, 30 years. So we had to think about this differently. And the reason why we will do this incrementally is because we're going to start from a wrong question. Or rather, I should call it's the right question, but it's a traditional question that most companies ask, which is, how can I transform my current process and capabilities with experiences with AI? So the question is, how do I improve what I have today with AI? What if we ask a different question? And I think this moment in history is beckoning us to ask the question differently, and which is, if we were to start our business today, we know our business, we know our industry, we know the environment. If we were to start our business today, if we were born today in this digital savvy AI world, how would we design our business? If we were few entrepreneurs, go in a garage, have an idea, and we want to start this business, how will we design it? Chances are we will design it very differently. And so the question is, why not start with that in mind? So for example, this is just one example, is a future of AI, a future of enterprises, by the way, if you go forward 5 years, 2030, I think it's not just about digital, it's not about AI, it's not about agents, it's not about automation. It's about combining all those elements to create what I call as autonomous user journeys and autonomous processes. So we can't just talk about agentic AI. Agentic AI is just a capability or enablement, but really what we're going to fundamentally change is the autonomous experiences, right? Just like driving a car. So today, in an autonomous car, a driver is driving, actually driver is the human, is driving the outcomes, not driving the car. And so similar kind of autonomous experiences and user journeys are going to be there in 2030 or even before that, where obviously AI, agentic, automation, digital, all these elements are going to come into play, but it's a combination of all that that's going to make the difference. If that's what we believe in our future to be, then chances are we cannot get there incrementally. So a little bit just connecting to George's point, yes, we can do a lot of little t's, but fundamentally we have to really, really think about transformatively in a big T way and somehow connect the big T vision with small t execution steps. And that's the little bit of a connection here. So we have to really think differently. And I think part of this is we as enterprise and the leaders of an enterprise have to show that courage. And I think there was a question here earlier around taking the risks. Show that courage to design the future version of our company and business, where we are defining these user journeys in an unconstrained way, assuming that we have all the resources in the world. What would that customer experience and user journey, and I'm saying user journey, it's not just about customers, it's any human being in or outside of an enterprise. What would that human user journey or experience look like? And it's not like this is the first time someone is talking about. This has been done. It has been done many, many times. And some recent examples, I'll just talk about this. Let's talk about taxi versus rideshare. So if you go back about 15 years back, New York Taxi, the New York Taxi system, the organization, they had a huge plan for digital modernization, digital transformation, and they spent hundreds of millions of dollars to actually transform the taxi systems and the technology in the business. This is what they did. They came up with a completely new dispatch management system. It was a state-of-the-art dispatch management system. They had iPads and mobile phones at the time. They were new, and they were given to all the drivers and dispatchers. They introduced new credit card readers in each taxi, if you remember, in New York. So it was a massive transformation. And they thought they did actually achieve the transformation. While they were doing it, somewhere in some corner, someone else had a different idea. They said, what if we connect the person who needs a taxi or a resource to a person who has a resource called car? And we asked a very simple question, where do you want to go? And I will tell you who has the car, and you connect the two. So what they did was, what New York Taxi did, they modernized their dispatch management system. And what the rideshare app did was they completely eliminated the need for a dispatch management system. There is no need for a dispatch management system. So that's the kind of thinking that happened and that took place, and that is what we can do in enterprise today as well. Another interesting example is, if you really think about Tesla, or electric vehicles, let's call it that, and more than electric vehicles, these are software-driven vehicles. We just call them EVs, but they are really software-driven vehicles. Compare that to traditional combustion engine vehicles. So a little bit of drawing from my own experiences at Toyota. If you compare what happened when, how the traditional car companies versus electric car companies approached this, was traditional car companies were incrementally improving the car. If you look at Toyota Camry as an example, the Toyota Camry of 80s and Toyota Camry of today is a dramatically different machine, by the way. But it has a lot of electronic components. So one of the approaches that most of the traditional automotive companies took was, how do I take these number of electronic component units and reduce them down? And they were continuously managing that, saying, OK, now I have 200 units. I will bring it down to 150, 140, 100, and someday there will be one. Why? If you look at the electric cars, most of the software-driven cars, they have only largely one motherboard that runs the entire car. Right? So instead of doing what Tesla did, which was, let's step back and let's think about what the car of the future will look like, and assuming it's electric and assuming that it will be software-driven, the mechanical design of the car was dramatically different. There were no mechanical parts. The wheels are not connected to each other. They are run by software. That kind of thinking and the thought process that took place completely revolutionized the way we think about the car as a machine. It's a totally different machine than the machine that the combustion engine cars are. So instead of incrementally trying to improve it, they completely redefined what the car would look like and car should be. And this idea that we had to go back and really challenge, not starting from the current state, but really putting ourselves in the future and designing what it will look like if we were to build this company today, will reveal all kind of possibilities that may not be there. And one of the things that you will see in each of these examples is interesting. It brings forward ideas to eliminate things rather than build things. So that naturally gives that efficiency that we are looking for. So with that example, OK, so let's just one more thing here is, so instead of trying to what we traditionally do, what I call is re-engineering the current state, how about reverse engineering the future state? Let's define what the future state is and work backwards from there, understand what's coming in the way of getting to the future state, and that becomes our plan. Instead of saying, let's start with the current state, which is There's the legacy system. We have all kinds of problems. Let me solve all these problems one by one incrementally. What if we go forward, understand what that is going to be, and then understand what is coming in the way to get to the future state, and then have a plan to remove the impediments. And what I've found is, in this example that I'm going to share, is that it changes the way the teams also operate. It changes the entire mindset, not just of the leaders, but actually the team that's executing this. The change management becomes very different because your focus is not on trying to find problems in the current state and to improve it. Your focus is now on the future state, something which is much more motivating, and your goal is to remove impediments. The motivation that you get to remove impediments and the obstacles to the future state is totally different. So this is exactly what we did. It changed the trajectory of the company. This is the financial services business of Toyota, one of the largest auto finance companies in the world. Largely, it is a wholly owned subsidiary of Toyota, but largely what this company does is provide financing for consumers and dealers who are under the brand of Toyota and Lexus. So we go back 2017, 2018, really solid company with a continuous growth over the years from a business perspective. As Toyota and Lexus business grew in this country and in the world, the financial services business grew with it. And so it was a very durable, solid organization, solid financials. On the other hand, from a technology perspective, there was a need to do more, and that's what we used to do, the transformation. And one of the things that we were trying to do was to replace our core lending system. And over the years, we have tried it multiple times, not a very successful outcome. While we were kind of incrementally trying to move forward. So in around summer of 2018, that's when I joined the organization. And when I joined, after a few months, I started to kind of realize there's a much bigger potential that this business has, but how do you activate that potential became my challenge. And just to give you a little bit more context at the time, if you go back to 2018, automotive industry was going through a massive transformation or a shift in the mindset. It was about, like, we are not just an automotive company that builds cars. We are a company, it's a mobility company that provides not only cars, but anything that moves from point A to point B. We move people or material from point A to point B safely. And that was the purpose, which basically meant it's not just about cars, anything that moves, right? It could be services, and it could be also things like robotic systems. Second, on the financial services side, we were going through a massive transformation as the banks and financial services institutions were being, some of them were dabbling into digital transformation, but then fintechs were giving us a lot of competition at the same time. And there were edges of the financial services industry that were getting disrupted by the fintechs. On the software industry side, if you remember, around the same time, most of these traditional companies, I'll take one example like Adobe, they were moving from shipping software or downloadable software to a software as a services model, which changed the game for that company dramatically. So these are three trends going on in 2018, and we are sitting here and trying to modernize our systems incrementally, having the same old conversation about little t or whatever that we want to call it. So the question that I asked, and I was an outsider, I'm a financial services person coming from financial services into automotive industry. So I posed this question: what if we were born today? How will we design that organization? How will we design this business? And the answer that came out was profoundly different. The answer was Toyota Financial Services is a very well-established organization, very well-respected organization, but what we do is we provide auto financing to only dealers and customers who are in Toyota and Lexus. What if we become a platform, provide the same service, same quality, same outcomes to other automakers, but do it in a way that they can run their financial services business completely independent or at least insulated from each other, but using the shared operations, shared platform, shared technology, which meant we'll have to rebuild the entire company, entire enterprise, not one system, not two systems, the whole system, whole company. And that's exactly what we did. And it was done at a massively groundbreaking speed, very, very fast, because what we also realized, what was coming in the way. So now you're saying, okay, that's what we want to be there. So the bigger question was, what's coming in our way to get there? Is it the technology? The answer is yes, but no. Is it the business processes? Yes, but no. It's actually an asset that we have. The biggest challenge that we had was the behaviors of the organization and the behaviors of the leaders more than the broader teams. And the one particular behavior that we zeroed in was around decision making. And not individual decision making, but cross-functional decision making. So you can see what happened. It revealed a totally different impediment than what we would have imagined if we were going through incrementally. Obviously, you can see the results here, 3 times the operating income growth in 5 years. Asset size grew. The whole company was built in, the new company was built in the cloud, so we didn't have to go through the whole cloud migration, so that saved us a lot. And it was all done in less than 3 years, actually even faster than that. The question is, now we are at the same place. It's been a few years. Now we have a next opportunity, which is this whole idea of AI and automation and agents. And this is where I think this audience I believe CIOs are positioned to design and deliver that next version of the business. But here's the challenge. Here is our challenge. Our agenda keeps growing. It's the same. We are still dealing with the legacy applications. We're still dealing with the big data. We're still dealing with the infrastructure. We're still trying to be agile. We're still trying. All those things have not gone away. It's not like as if we have solved all those things. They're still there. And then AI comes along, and the agents come along, and the new things will come along. And by 2030, there will be more things that we can't even anticipate today. So this agenda keeps growing, and we have to deliver what we just talked about, this kind of an autonomous user journeys or whatever new world that we want to paint. What that means is we need to dig deep. There is a superpower that each one of us have, and that superpower is being the present futurists. Obviously, we can keep talking about the present, but what really matters is the future. So be both. It's not either or. So it has to be small t, big T. It has to be present and future. You have to work backwards from the future and be grounded in the future, but ask the questions differently. What if we were born today? And then what's coming in the way for us to get there? And the third question is really important. What is it that we have already that's going to get us there? So what it does is, in a very subtle way, it shifts this mindset from current state being a problem to current state being an asset that will lead us to the future. But it's really the way we ask the questions that changes the game. So without getting into the details here, but present futurist CIO or a leader is largely who understands both. Reverse engineering the future and re-engineering the current. It's not either one, it's both. The second is this idea, this skill that we need is to work backwards from the future to develop the plan. We are so conditioned to work current forward to build our plans. But what I'm challenging is try this new technique, which is go to the future, work back, and build your plans based on that, and then execute. And the third piece is really important. Our agenda keeps growing, but our budget doesn't grow. So we have to learn, and we have to show how do we grow business without growing expenses. So I don't know if you noticed in the example that I gave you about Toyota, that transformation that we did in 5 years, 0 incremental dollars to IT budget in 5 years. It was flat for 5 years. How did we do that? We look at this entire capacity, as I call it, a fixed capacity, and we kept finding waste. All we were doing was removing waste from running IT towards growing business. And that's what we did. We reinvested. Our ratio when we started in 2018 was about 90% in running and 10% in truly growing the business and the revenue. By the time we were in 2020, it was about 60-40. So that's how you reinvested without increasing the budget. So I think these are the things that the CIOs bring to the table, and that's our superpower. And that's what's going to get us to 2030, in my view. That's how we can lead our organizations to cross this chasm that we are all facing. The AI, we have to really, really rethink, activate this superpower, the present futurist superpower. Second is really, I think we have to spend time to design this unconstrained future state. truly an unconstrained future state. And once we do that, then we can execute and get to the future state. So I will stop there, and I know there are a couple of questions, but I'll take any questions. I think I love Q&A. I think that's more insightful, but happy to take any questions. And I know she's waiting for me to. Yes, please.
When you talked about the 5-year transformation, reducing waste, was that a formal process, as in Lean Six Sigma?
Great question. It wasn't a formal process, but a little bit a longer answer, but bear with me. Toyota is known for lean manufacturing, right? I think one of the places where not only just Toyota, any manufacturing, any automotive companies, they struggle with is applying the manufacturing concepts in management concepts, right? So that's what a lot of times we struggle. And a lot of times we struggle with it because we don't really fully get into the nuances of those manufacturing practices. So what we did was, or in this case, we first started with this idea that we are going to build software like we build cars. So we had to really, really understand the manufacturing process. And it's fascinating, and I can spend a lot of time on that. But if you think about how the manufacturing process works, not only what happens on the assembly line, but how the parts are supplied from all over the place, and they all come at the same time, and the orchestration that takes place is exactly how we thought about IT. IT is nothing, but we are building the software. So we said enterprise, the entire company is one product. It's different from how we normally think about these things. Entire company is one product made up of parts, just like a car is made up of parts. Those parts are supplied by various factories, and those were our digital factories, software programming factories. And then the whole assembly process, which basically means every 2 weeks, every factory submits their changes. They all come together into this one big product, and that product gets assembled. And every 2 weeks, we have a new version of the entire company. Simple concept as a concept, right? To do that, you have to apply now all these manufacturing concepts. And there's another element to that, is that if you really, really understand Toyota's lean manufacturing methodology, and if you have ever read Toyota Production System, what you will starting to realize is that a lot of things what we used to talk about, there are underlying more profound behavioral changes. It's all designed to shape certain behavior. And one of the behaviors that we shaped was this decision making using a concept that we call decision inventory, which is just like material inventory. So the goal is just like you will do material inventory needs to be as low as possible. Decision inventory needs to be as low as possible. The biggest waste in the organization, by the way, if you want to remove it today, you can easily do it, is cross-functional decision making. If you can remove that, it's millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. But we can talk more about it. There are a lot of details behind it. But there was no formal process as such. We said, OK, we are going to follow this Six Sigma, or we're going to follow TPS. But we took the principles of our TPS, which is Toyota Production System.
So one of the interpretations I had of the 5-year slide was that you're almost shifting the organizational mindset from late adopter and laggard all the way to early adopter or innovator or futurist. What were some of the key transformations that had to happen in an organization for that to happen, to go from somebody that's resistant to technology change and innovation to somebody that's embracing it proactively?
Yeah, so I think underlying the enterprise is the same enterprise. It has the same complications. There are all kinds of behaviors, all kinds of patterns, all kinds of people. And I think we'll face the same resistance, or so-called the resistance. But I think part of that was the way we had to overcome that was to really help, how do we get people to, or empower people to be making decisions? I think that was, we had to unlock something. We had to unlock a behavior, because when we call it resistance, it's not resistance as much. It is really just, I think George said it really well, it is the worry or the risk that something bad's going to happen. Companies like Toyota Financial Services, they are stable, really good companies. Frankly, if we don't even do transformation, we will be great, right, just by doing that. So sometimes these new things have this sense of risk. And I think that's what happens in most cases. So we had to help them see beyond the current, and part of that was to empower. to make decisions. So one of the, and this is more details, but structurally, we designed the team such that they were empowered to make decisions. And it was a reverse approach where teams at the bottom were the ones holding the top accountable for making decisions, not the other way around. And that kind of gave them that sense of safety, if you will. And once you give them sense of safety, then they can talk about all the future stuff and innovation, et cetera.
So you talked about the growing role of CIOs, especially with all the new technologies which are coming in. Do you think that the relationship of the digital transformation organizations with the business is also going through a change, and there are opportunities for more co-creation than a centralized organization trying to do things, right? So especially with all the low-code, no-code, and this AI capabilities, which a lot of people out there in the business can be trained on to build agents or manage agents and all of that. So what are your thoughts on how the how that partnership is going to change in the future for maximum effectiveness?
Yeah, no, great question. So I personally, I'm not a great fan of this idea of technology and business, technology versus business, et cetera. And I've tried to avoid to use those terms. And this was really, really important for this kind of a transformation that I just talked about, because you cannot do that kind of a transformation if everyone around the CEO's table is on the same page. And not only same page, it's not this, oh, I support this idea. No, I don't want you to support. I want you to be part of it, right? So there's a difference. You have to be part of it. So now, as a CIO, I think it's our responsibility to lift the lift the proficiency of digital and what digital means. And second is, we are the ones who are at the center of the change that takes place. Think about it this way. In an organization, we largely do two things. We run the company, we change the company, right? So run the company, everyone's running the company. You can be a CFO, you can be chief risk officer, everyone is in that role. When you talk about changing the company, in today's world, especially financial services company, there's not a single change that doesn't run through IT in some form or fashion, right? So what happens is naturally our role as a CIO, we are the change engineers of the company, not just software engineers, right? Every change is going to come to us. So now it becomes our responsibility, how do we create that collaborative structure? So when I talk about the decision-making, cross-functional decision-making, was basically breaking those traditional silos and barriers to create this structure. For example, I talked about digital factories. Each digital factory had two owners, co-owners. One would be, we call them a process expert, other is a technology expert. And with equal decision rights, for example. You go down in the organization at that level to create that parity. And more than parity, it is creating the bilingualness or the multilingual, right? So other approach that we took was we created a digital academy. And the digital academy was largely leaders and we teaching our own people. And that was another area where we said, anyone who joins the company, whether you are an employee or a consultant, and we had a large number of workforce was consultant, they will all go through the same orientation around understanding what the business does. Think about it, what happens in most companies today. You hire a consultant, you expect that consultant to start working on something immediately, right? You have not given any training, any context, anything. You just expect them to work, right? Whereas they are working on the crown jewels of our company. Would you let that do? For example, in our factories, in Toyota factory, when we are assembling the car, no one can step onto the assembly line unless they have gone through a fundamental skills training. So why are we letting that happen to software engineering, but not letting that to happen to automotive engineering, right? So we don't talk about business technology in automotive engineering, but somehow we talk about it in technology engineering, right? So I think we had to break those boundaries through these various techniques. Decision-making, that was a more collaborative structure. It was always a business technology conversation simultaneously. Digital proficiency, I took that, or rather the technology team took that responsibility to raise the digital proficiency of everyone in the company, not just IT, business, IT, consultants, employees, everyone. So we have to assume, not assume, we are the change agents, whether we like it or not, and then we have to create the environment to enable the change. We can't expect someone else to create the environment for change. So CIOs, in my view, have a very, in a way, unique role, and a role that I admire a lot. Actually, think about it. We are sitting at the center of driving the change, and we are the only ones who fully understand what the next version of the company looks like. If you ask anyone around the C-suite table, only we know, the CIOs know, what that future version looks like. Because we know all the projects, all the work that's going on. If you really put those dots together and connect all the dots, you are the only one who can explain what this company will look like in 2 years from now. So I think that those are the kind of elements that will bring those barriers, or remove those barriers, rather.
Makes sense. Thank you.
I can keep talking, but Alan's giving me a hand. So thank you very much.